Ever feel like you're just one step away from landing bigger clients, commanding higher prices, and becoming the undisputed expert in your industry? Well, writing a book might just be your missing piece. And today I'm sitting down with Charlie Hoehn, the behind-the-scenes powerhouse who's helped top entrepreneurs like Tim Ferriss, Cody Sanchez, and even our very own front row dad, Jeff Woods, to create best-selling books that transform businesses. In this episode, Charlie reveals exactly how writing a book can instantly position you as the expert, effortlessly attract high-value opportunities, and establish lasting credibility. You'll learn his proven system for turning your knowledge into a world-class book, often in just days, and discover why your book is the ultimate business asset that you can't afford not to have. Ready to become the go-to authority in your niche and grow your business like never before? Well, keep listening. Your next chapter starts right now.
So let's use that as a bridge to talk about like life now for you and also your mission, because one of the things that I wanted to talk about and bring attention to and learn from you about is the work that you're doing. And I don't want to describe what that is. I want you to describe it, but I do have close friends that have worked with you. Jeff Woods is one in particular. His front row dad was on the show when he launched his book that I know you supported. At least I'm fairly certain that's right. Yeah,
totally.
And also I was, and I texted you this, that I was talking with Levesque recently, Ryan Levesque, who's a front row dad and a great friend. And we were talking about the possibility of doing a dad book together, which is kind of fun to think about. When you look at your current life and what your mission is and what you're excited about, can you talk to me a little bit about what's waking you up and like the purpose of your professional existence right now? Because it feels like I'm hearing about you from all these awesome people, and I know like the stories of who you've worked with in the past, and you know it's that of legend, you know. So talk to me about your mission right now.
Yeah, man. Thank you. I was just saying this to Ryan. I was talking to him and Jason earlier.
Yeah.
And I was saying, and I said this to my co-founder the other day, both he and I said it, which was like, I don't say this from a place of bragging at all, but I don't know at this point anybody who has a better life than I do. Like the life that I've designed feels fully aligned finally, and is like being rewarded as well for finally figuring out like this is the one thing that I can uniquely bring to the world.
Yeah.
Like I'm 38. It took many years of work to get to the point where I kept redefining what is it I do and getting lost along the way. And so now like I'm helping experts write and publish world-class books. And so, which I've been doing for a long time, but the unique thing that happened was the cost of writing fell 10,000%, right? And so, which is not to say like we're generating books with AI, but I came up with a unique process. So I'll back up a little bit. For years, I've been dealing with clients coming to me being like, I spent $150,000 on multiple ghostwriters and I'm at square one.
Yep.
Like they didn't capture my voice. They didn't do a good job. I've also heard other publishing programs where it was like they did such a mediocre job that I'm embarrassed to even market the book, or like they didn't even focus on the structure, the table of contents, you know? And so that's like hiring somebody to build you a house and then they just start, you know, buying couches and stuff. It's crazy. And so it felt really frustrating.
Yeah.
You know, that you need to pay this much and it takes this long to get to something decent. Like the survival rate of authors writing a first draft of their book and completing it is 3%.
Wow.
It's 97% failure rate. And it's like, you think that you're buying a higher likelihood of success when you're hiring help. And that's not always the case. Sometimes you're torching money and time and you don't even know that that's what's happening. Yeah. Right. It's such a common thing. And so it's less than 1% that end up publishing.
Yeah.
Right. And even if they do, often they're publishing something that looks embarrassing.
Yeah.
Right. They're like, I hired, you know, the person I found on Upwork, or like the person at my company who does our PowerPoints. It's like, so my background for the last 15 years has been working with, you know, the top business authors and I was very blessed to learn from like Tim Ferriss and Ramit Sethi and Tucker and recently, Cody Sanchez and I did her book, Main Street Millionaire. And so what I built, I envisioned this, bringing it back to Chimay. That was the reason I have the company that I have now.
Really?
Because the vision was, oh my gosh, if I know how to structure the inputs, I can build the machine that turns it into a manuscript magically, almost instantly.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how long that would take. It took me a year to build and experiment with, and it was there were many nights where I would stay up till 3, 4 a.m., experimenting because some of these prompts would take so long to process and like, how do you keep it on rails so it retains the author's original phrasing and words and doesn't neuter their voice? A few weeks ago, it was the first time it worked all by itself, where I dropped in 14 recordings, 14 audio files that I'd gotten with the author. And 1 hour later, it was a fully polished, full-length manuscript.
Dude.
And like showed it to other professional authors and editors, and they're like, bro, what? And like I run it through Zero GPT, which measures human or bot, and it's a 0.5% bot written.
Wow.
It's less than 1%. And so it took me a long time to figure that out. But the beauty of it now is like that machine is built. And now we can focus entirely on experience for these authors.
Yes.
I can get them a first draft in under a week. Like 2 days of recordings. Let's get your table of contents, your book North Star, and your stories like locked. You speak according to how I tell you to speak over like a 2-day period, sometimes one. That's the fastest we've done it. You'll have a book at the end of the week. And to get to that first draft with like 100% certainty, quality, higher quality than you're going to get with a ghostwriter is just like, it's thrilling. I did like
Exciting.
The number of times it's like broken down into tears with like breakthroughs in the machine, the like automations that I was building of like, that didn't work for freaking months. Yeah. And then it worked.
Yeah.
It's like, it's thrilling. And so I'm in a role of building the product and the experience, designing the experience for really cool people who are experts at these things, And so that's the thrill right now, is just kind of developing that. And so I brought in a co-founder several months ago who I've been friends with for years. His name's Miles Rote, and he's beloved in the publishing industry. Every author he talks with really, really likes him. And we looked at I'm a terrible salesperson, but we looked at the first 4 months of me selling my services versus the first 4 months of him, and it was like 12x. 12x. And he's really good. I'm really bad. And it's like it's hard for me to promote myself with a degree of confidence that I think gets people over the. But in any case, it's been a joy because I've been able to hand off the stuff that I just don't enjoy doing.
Yeah.
I'm not good at, and I can focus exclusively on the stuff that's like just a delight. So. Yeah,
dude, congratulations.
Thank you.
That's exciting.
It felt really, really great and really exciting. And so
I have so many questions.
Yeah. Fire away.
I have so many questions. One of them is, I think a lot of our audience would be very interested in what you're doing. And I say that because, one, there is this, business owners and entrepreneurs, right? And high performers tends to be our audience. And though being a dad, there's this piece that goes into writing that's like, I want my kids to know me. Yeah. I want this to be a gift to my kids too. When Justin Donald was putting out The Lifestyle Investor, that's something I talked to him about. I was like, dude, this is for Savannah. Like if something happens to you, dude, like this is it. And dude, and even, I was at John Ruhlin's funeral in the fall, and I was thinking about his book, Giftology, and how wonderful that was that the girls could know him through that writing, in his life and so on. So I think there's like a real richness to this piece for our audience in particular. my question to you is, how does somebody know if they should write a book, if they should, like, talk me through the process a little bit about somebody raising their hand and qualifying themselves and saying, this is what I should do. Because like we started off, like sometimes it's like, yes, books are great, but like, here's why you might not want to write one.
Right.
How does somebody qualify themselves to be able to take that step? And in particular with you, because we're having this conversation.
Love it. Yeah. So yeah, it's like you can look online how to write a book, but an expert will be like, should you write a book in the first place,
Yes.
right? And so one of the biggest qualifiers for working with us, the first thing is we call it prescriptive nonfiction. It's basically you're an expert on a topic. You had a problem that you solved for yourself and then helped others solve it. Other people have likely paid you to solve it. And you use a recipe that you know works and is not something that ChatGPT is going to spit out. It's actually based on real world application and wisdom, hard-earned wisdom. So like Cody's is a great example of that. Main Street Millionaire, right? She'd been teaching that for 10 years and she solved that problem herself multiple times for herself. So that's kind of the first qualifier is like, are you an expert? Do people typically pay you for your recipe to help them solve the problem that you solved for yourself? And the second thing is like, can you comfortably talk about this for 2 days? And if I ask you a specific question, you're not going to panic. It's rote. It's easy for you. It's like, I remember giving a speech years ago. Somebody asked me to write a speech on like how to hire rock stars or whatever, right? I was like, I don't know if I'm so qualified for this. I was like, I'll do it, but no Q&A. And then they did a Q&A, and I was like, shit. Like, please don't ask any questions. Like, that's all I got. And so that is not a book I should write ever, right? It should be effortless for you. It should feel like, yeah, of course, this is what you do. And so the problem with an author who's not qualified or who deceives themselves into thinking this is the person I want to become is they easily fall apart when you start questioning them, when they realize I haven't actually done the things necessary to call myself an expert. I might be an expert on this topic on a theoretical and informational level. Like you might have read every book, every study, you can recite them, you sound super smart, people are impressed. But if you haven't helped others implement it and you don't know the landmines that they hit, you don't know how to get them successfully over the emotional hurdles that inevitably come with working with human beings. If you don't understand that part, it's hard to make a great book by an expert. So like we focus exclusively on experts. We don't do, I made one exception for memoir and I told my co-founder, I'm like, I know this is not going to work, and it didn't. So we don't do memoirs. We don't do fiction. It's primarily business books, personal development, self-help. Like I was talking to a woman the other day who she helps women going through menopause because their narrative that they've been inundated with is like, you're effectively the victim of this condition, right? Like your body's going to just like fall apart because of you're just going through this. And she's like, it's total BS. And so she's an expert on this topic, and like her book's going to be great and empowering. So those are the books we look for.
Hey guys, I want to share something brand new designed for high-performing men like you who want to win at home, not just at work. Our team developed this program over the past 8 years by collecting the best ideas, strategies, and habits from hundreds of men. It's all in one place to give you the best results in the shortest amount of time, because if you're a married man with kids and a business, there is no time to waste. This experience creates deep transformation, not just taking notes and talking about change. It's about doing what matters now so you don't miss the moments when your kids need you the most. These opportunities will come and go very quickly. It's also about building a marriage that shows your kids what real love looks like, creating an environment where they and you thrive. Look, marriage is tough. I've personally walked the line of divorce several times, and without the tools I've gained from this community, I might not be married today. And it's not just about being a great dad or a husband. It's about fulfilling your personal mission, thriving as a man, making an impact through your work, gaining time freedom, financial freedom, traveling the world, and giving to the causes you care about. This program is designed to keep you mentally, physically, and spiritually strong. You do not need to do this alone. Our badass community of intentional fathers are going to help you raise the bar. You're going to learn from each other, hold each other accountable, find your blind spots, and achieve success most dads will never see. It's time to dig deep, gain clarity, and create real change starting now. If you're ready to evolve, visit frontrowdads.com today. We've got limited spots available for this brand new program.
Yeah. That's really cool.
One more point.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
So the reason we look for those is because I am of the firm belief that if you can't give away 1,000 copies of your book and hit your business goals, then you have a flawed business model. And so part of what we do, and this is with Jeff Woods, he came in, he was starting an AI leadership business.
Yeah.
And he wasn't at the time an expert in AI, but he was definitively an expert in leadership.
Yeah.
He knew it cold. And so applying those two things together was interesting, but I also helped him with like the business model itself, or at least your pricing needs to be of a certain rate, because we're trying to create you into a category of one. You are the world's leading expert in this tiny sliver of a thing, and we want you to price accordingly, and therefore your book should effectively be a loss leader if in a worst case scenario. Now, Jeff has made more than his money back just in book sales alone, but like when you're working with a traditional publisher, their incentives are for you to sell as many copies as possible. My incentives are to help you grow your business as much as possible and achieve get the opportunities and the relationships that you want. And in order to do that, it's more effective to actually say, it doesn't matter if I sell this thing. I can just print out a bunch of copies and send them out, and I'll hit those goals.
Exactly. Yeah. You are speaking directly to my heart right now, because when I think about why I might put a book out and what the purpose of that is, I mean, what's really awesome is I don't know that I would write. And look, there's a part of my heart that wants to write the book that everybody thinks is awesome and impacts millions of people. Of course, the I want to do good in the world part of me, for sure. The very practical part of me realizes that I could write this just for our current audience, which I have more along the lines of that, like 1,000 true fans. So when you look at my podcast downloads, it's not super impressive. When you look at my social media reach, it's not super impressive. Like nobody's looking at that going, holy shit, 1 million people. But what's interesting is we have a very profitable, successful business built and a very like raving fan type base. And what I think would be great is to write for that group. And the type of book that they would want to hand to another epic dad and say, man, I think you would love this. This is very niche. How would you coach me if I hired you and your company, right? Is there a coaching element then that you would sit down and we do a strategy session and you kind of help me think through all these moving parts? That's part of the process? Yeah.
So, by the way, that's what Dan Sullivan did before he started publicly releasing books, right? Yeah. He would make books for his community that were so good. And he was like, they're only for this community. Of course they would get distributed to other great business owners. So, yes, I agree. The type of business you're describing where the vanity metrics are not that impressive are my favorite businesses. Right. Like, I don't like media-driven businesses. Right. I like substantive ones. Respectfully to media folks. But yes, so there is coaching components. There's also like tools that I developed. So the coaching looks like this, is we have a kickoff call where it's like, okay, you have access to our twice weekly coaching group calls. And those are always going to be smaller than 8 people. Mm-hmm. Usually it's just like 2 people. And those office hours are similar to college, where if you were like falling behind or needed help, you go meet with the professor and all of a sudden you're at the head of the class and you solve that problem and you're good to go. I'll work with authors on the actual stuff that they're working on. Need help with your introduction for your book? I'll help you edit that. Do you need an extra set of eyes on your table of contents, or do you not know if like where you're heading is the right direction? We'll address that. And so it's twice weekly for a year for the coaching component. And also I say to all my authors, like, look, this is my job. If you get stuck, DM me, and like I will hop on a one-on-one if necessary, and we'll figure it out together. The thing that I developed that's probably unique to almost every other program is I developed tools based on my processes that I've learned helping authors sell over 10 million copies of their books. So like I have a table of contents tool, for instance, that will lay out, this is what a great table of contents looks like. I'm not saying it's the answer, but I help you get to that table of contents, that V1, and then I say, that's your MVP. Don't write a frickin' word. Go put that in front of your community, your target readers. Yes. Get them to tell you, is this a hell yes? Is this a hell yes? Is this a meh? No. They should want to flip to every single chapter on there, because a big part of the problem when writers start writing their books is like they're writing what they think will be interesting. And often they'll find themselves just like writing about what they think is important and interesting. And the reader doesn't care. Yeah. Like, I'm in defense of your reader. Yes, I want you to be successful, but my actual primary job is to defend the reader from you inundating them with fluff, right? Like, which is super common, right? Like,
I will pay a crazy amount of money for that.
Yeah, like Cody did. Yeah. You know, when I worked with her, she gave me the first draft of her book. I said the first 3 chapters should be 2 paragraphs in your intro, and that's it. Because it takes 4 chapters to get to something practically valuable. Yeah. You're just inundating them with theory right here, and they don't want that. Yeah. You know, the consumer's evolved. Like, let's go. Yep. You know, you're speaking to a smart person. That's right. And so that's like probably my guiding North Star, honestly, is I'm in defense of the reader. Yeah. And I'm going to prevent you from putting out a bad book. So we go through kind of the book North Star, make sure this is aligned with your goals, the reader's goals. It's like, okay, this does make sense both on a commercial level and like your niche audience level. We pick real readers. Another big issue that authors have when they're in the writing process is they're writing to an audience of like a speech. Right? It's just a bunch of people in the audience, potentially. When in reality, there's one person on the other side of this. And so you have to speak to them directly as though they're intelligent and like they already know a lot of the back history nonsense that you think you need to fill them in on for the first few chapters, and just like start transforming their life as soon as you possibly can, getting them real results that they're like just blown away by, right? And so that's how I tend to structure these books, is like we have to transform the reader. We have to change their life in a way that's meaningful to them, that others can observe and comment on, because then the word of mouth is baked into the book itself, and then it markets itself. And so we do the book North Star, the table of contents, story gathering, and then once those 3 exercises are basically approved, we create chapter talking points. And then you're equipped with what you need to say in our like guided sessions to record the book. And so what I offer for clients for doing the recordings is you can either have the experience or you can have convenience. Some people are like based in Hawaii, and so it's impractical to come to the States. Others want the experience. And so the experience is you get picked up by a private driver at Austin Airport. You get brought to a 5-star hotel in a suite. We record your book in that suite. And so you're just there being taken care of. You get a credit to use the spa, you know, like after a long day, either on day 1 or day 2. But we'll knock out the book. You have a book director. So somebody who's like similar to a movie director. It's like we're getting the shots that we need to get in the order we need to get them. And then once we get all those recordings, Then we take those files, turn them into a manuscript, do a quality check. You get your first draft. And it can be super duper fast, obviously. And so that's like the first service. And the second service is like we do publishing and marketing with you.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the cool things about it is like, I think a lot of service providers go wrong with the done for you because psychologically the client releases it and they can blame you now.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten clients insane results done for them and they're still like, well, why didn't we do more? Why didn't you do more? Right? And it's like, Jeff Bezos is following you. Like what more do you want? And so,
That's good.
Yeah. So this process is really nice because it's completely done with you and it's tools that like just accelerate to get you to the solid version of that thing. And then we also do a round of editing for you on your first draft to make sure it's like you don't have to do any heavy lifting on the first round of edits. Like you're in a really good spot.
Yeah.
So
What's interesting? I'm noticing my own internal dialogue right now, and I'm just gonna say it out loud. What's going on in my head, right? On one hand, I go, I'm the perfect person to write a book on fatherhood. Having been in this business for a long time, so many interviews, lots of experience, a 15-year-old, a 10-year-old, I'm kind of in it, like this is the time. I got to do this, right? And then there's another voice in my head that's happening simultaneously that's like, I wonder if you could riff on real value. Is your recipe that solid? Like, is Front Row Dads awesome because of you, John, or because of everybody that's in it? Like, maybe what you should do is go interview everybody else and let them write the book because... Right? Like there's this, do I really have what it would take to speak out loud or to cultivate? Because I'm saying that because, look, I know I have wisdom. I am confident of that. Like I know some of the things I've done are great things. I know that other men have learned from it and implemented it in their life and it's been great. I also intentionally want to be humble and a curious learner and know that there's a lot more to learn. So in that space of like knowing I have value and being a humble learner, I teeter between is now the time to write that book? Like what if I did one more year of interviews? What if we're going to launch a training program soon in Front Row Dads. It's like 5 weeks. What if we craft that first and then test all those people? And then I start to sound like the person that before I have children, I want to make sure that I have $7 million in the bank
right.
and all the things lined up.
Yeah.
And sometimes you go, if you want kids, just have kids and you'll figure it out.
Yep.
So how do I look at that, the timing wise because I heard what you said. It's not, I didn't catch what you said about can you speak the recipe out?
Right.
But I can feel my imposter syndrome and the resistance to that.
Right.
On one hand, I want to write you a check right now and let's get this book started. And on the other hand, I'm like, pump the brakes, John. Yeah. Relax.
Well, yeah. So you said it earlier, like, the childhood wounds of am I enough? I want to control all these things and it's just manifesting. So you have to understand that's probably a decent portion of the equation is the person, you have that voice for a reason. It's kept you safe in certain instances, or it's felt like it has, or maybe it's just bad programming, right? That's the programming running in your head.
Yeah.
The more practical way I think of looking at it is like, look, expertise is a never-ending ladder. And yes, you could wait until you're on a few rungs higher.
Sure.
But you're going to have the exact same questions.
Yeah.
And so you're not teaching to John 2 rungs up.
That's right.
You're teaching to everybody who's below you on the rung.
Yeah.
And the ones who are desperate, right?
Yeah.
And so they're in hell in their own version. And fear, like Tucker always said this, is fear is always selfish. It is preventing you from changing because things are seemingly good right now. And your brain perceives drastic change as death, and death is frightening, right? And so you have to understand the death of your old self and life and identity come with publishing a book. That's why we would see people get through writing and editing on a phenomenal book, and they get to the finish line and they're like, peace, and they would cut off communication because it was an assault on the current identity and reality that they had. And they were so afraid of losing what they built in some way and not being able to notice the change. Invariably, for almost all of them, it was a better reality that they were stepping into, a more expansive one with more possibility and opportunities. And all of a sudden it was like, holy crap, like just ask Jeff, you know, he published that book. His life has been astonishing since. Like it truly has changed his life. And
he's bear hugging a rocket ship right now.
Yes, right. And that can happen.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand that, like, I would think back and I would ask you, like, what are periods of your life where you felt that same fear because you knew a change, a death to your identity was coming up? And how did it pan out when you went through that fire?
Yeah, many times. You know, the transformation is, the transformation's not easy.
Yeah.
I mean, I wrote the Living College Life on the Front Row, which was like this self-published, hey, what'd you do great? What did you not do great in college? I wrote the Front Row Factor. That I should have had you on my side because I think I was writing the things that I found really interesting, but not necessary. And by the way, my test readers in that particular situation were like all my fans, my friends, like the people that are like, this is awesome.
Right.
This is totally a New York Times bestseller.
Yeah.
You know, so we launch and we get 100 5-star reviews on day one, right, of the book, and we sell thousands of copies, but it doesn't keep selling because it really spoke to our group, but it wasn't the one that somebody would say, you gotta read this.
Yeah. So to this point, like people say you're launching a book, right? They'll say you're launching a book. It's this big deal. I always say a book is a seed. And when you make that seed, you plant it into society and culture. You don't know when it's going to bear fruit, how much fruit it's going to bear. You don't know if it's going to spread like crazy or if it's going to be a little bonsai tree that you really have appreciation for and a few other people do.
It's a good way to look at it.
It's like that's the magic of the book. But you are putting something in the earth, into humanity that's going to live there forever. And you don't know who it's going to be discovered by or when.
Cool. Such an inspiring thought.
Right. Like, what if it's your great grandkids revisit it and it sends them on a trajectory and their own adventure? And it's like, you don't know the serendipity of that. And you can't ever unless you allow yourself to expose yourself to those possibilities. And so I think, you know, a big part of this is like, that's why I do that table of contents exercise is like, get the confidence that really people want this and that like what you're going to work on is the house that they want to walk through and live in. And then you can go off and write it. It doesn't have to be from a place of, oh, do they really want to, like, is this good enough? It's like, they just told you. Now you can make it. You're good to go. Yeah.
Do you think there's a dad book out there that's missing?
Totally, 100%. There is absolutely, like, do you know Paul Attia? Peter Attia's brother?
No, I don't.
Yeah, it's like he and I talked about this at length multiple times of like, he said, you know, Christians have done a phenomenal job with speaking to dads, and that's kind of it. Like, there's the entire secular universe or all other religions, it doesn't really speak to entrepreneurial dads. Like, and guess what? If 10 entrepreneurial dad books came out at the same time, they're not competition. They're all lifting because the people who really care about that topic will read all of those books. They want all the wisdom, right? And so books are also unique in that regard. It's not a zero-sum game. It's not like, if I really care about atomic habits, I'm only going to read James's book. If I'm really into habits, I'm like, holy shit, I'm going to read this one, this one, this one.
Thanks for listening today, fellas. If you got value from this episode, I ask that you take 1 second right now and you share this with another dad in your life that you respect, that you know is committed to becoming a better man, family man, and businessman. And on that note, I want to honor you for choosing growth. Your family will thank you years from now for all the effort that you're putting in to learn the strategy so you can show up more fully for them today. Take care.